Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Professor Dr. Zanaria binti Abdullah, Dean of
Universiti Malaya, kebanggaan kita semua, bertambah para ilmuwan di berbagai lapangan. Kami bertekad di hati mencapai cita murni, tradisi kecemerlangan menepati wawasan. Di sini kami sedia berbakti, terus berinovasi. Kami harapan generasi muda, teras nusa dan bangsa. Varsity kesayanganku, sungguh banyak jasamu membentuk insan mulia, berilmu berbudaya. Di sini kami sedia berbakti, terus berinovasi. Kami harapan generasi muda, teras nusa dan bangsa. Varsity kesayanganku, sungguh banyak jasamu membentuk insan mulia, berilmu berbudaya.
First of all, a very good afternoon to Professor Dr. Zanaria binti Abdullah, Dean of Fakulti of Sains, Professor Dr. Yusoff Mohd Amin, Datuk-Datuk and Datin-Datin, distinguished guests, management of the Faculty of Science, University of Malaya, and ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the inaugural lecture by Professor Dr. Yusoff Mohd Amin entitled Radiation in the Environment. Without further delay, I would like to invite the chairman for today's inaugural lecture, Professor Dr. Zanaria binti Abdullah, Dean of Faculty of Science, to chair today's lecture. Professor Dr. Zanaria, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wabarakatuh dan salam sejahtera. Professor Dr. Yusoff Mohd Amin. He was born in Pulau Kerengga, Marang, Terengganu. He was the first intake of Sekolah Menengah Sains Pulau Pinang. After that, he pursued his study in Chesterfield College of Technology, followed by University of Salford for a BSc in Health and Environmental Physics. He did his MSc and PhD at University of Birmingham, United Kingdom. He then joined University of Malaya as a tutor in September 1980. He was promoted to the post of Professor in 2001. In terms of administrative duty, he was the head of Radiation Protection Services Unit and acted as Radiation Protection Officer since 1990. In addition, he was the head of Physics Department from 2001 to 2005. During his service, he was awarded Anugerah Perkhidmatan Cemerlang in the year of 2000, 2006, and 2016, as well as Sijil Perkhidmatan Cemerlang in the year of 2003, 04, and 205. And without further ado, I would like to call upon Professor Dr. Yusoff Mohd Amin to deliver his lecture.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairperson, for the kind introduction. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my inaugural lecture. Even though it's very belated, but as they say, better late than never. So the topic of my talk today is radiation in the environment. Of course, radiation is something you cannot escape. Okay? Everybody receives the radiation. It's the amount that is different. Okay? Okay. So basically, the rough topic of the lecture will be the source of radiation, how you detect it, the effect of radiation on human, and also I will discuss some of my research in radiation field. Okay. So as usual, you have the contents of the talk, okay, introduction, and so on. Okay. This is actually my work on radiation in Universiti of Malaya. First thing, I'm the radiation protection officer in UM. Okay, the radiation protection unit is formed in 1990 in order to comply to Act 304 enforced by Atomic Energy Licensing Board. Okay? Without this license, we cannot operate all the X-ray machine or use the radioactive source and so on. Okay? And then it will follow from what I've done in research, mostly under the topic of thermoluminescence. Okay? Norm and norm, that means we measure radon and so on, plus some other work, research work. I also involved as a consultant, okay, for a company, Asia Lab, okay, in order to verify the report on the norm and quality assurance of X-ray machine. Okay. So, as a start, what is radiation? Radiation is energy that travels in the form of wave high-speed particles. Of course, in physics, particles can be wave can be particles. Yeah? So you have the common thing, the light, the microwave, even your handphone signal is also radiation. Okay? But here, especially in physics, radiation is referred to ionizing radiation. That means radiation will have high energy to ionize atom. Whereas the low energy radiation is called non-ionizing radiation. And when we mention radiation, we always associate it with nuclear power plant, nuclear weapons, that means atomic bombs, radiation treatment for cancer, radiotherapy, and in Malaysia lately is mineral processing plant. Okay? We have a demonstration against it from Kuantan to Australia. So if you look at the energy spectrum, okay, you have the low energy, which is from your radio, microwave, super light, until the end, high energy that involve radiation, ionizing radiation, okay, used for your chest X-ray, cancer treatment, and so on. But there is also one we will come to it later, is radiation from outer space, called cosmic ray. Okay? So this is a typical atom. This is to show you what is ionizing radiation. An atom is basically you have a nucleus which is positive charge, in the middle with electron around it. In between the electron and the nuclear charge is mostly empty space. Yeah? So ionization is basically radiation energy, alpha, beta, or gamma, okay, transferred most of the energy to orbital electron orbiting the nucleus. And this electron will have enough energy to escape the nucleus. Yeah. And this is called ionizing radiation. So you have electron plus a positive ion. Okay? And there are several types of radiation, namely depend on the type of particle being emitted. Okay? You have alpha particle radiation, or simply alpha radiation. This is a helium nucleus, quite a heavy particle as compared to, say, beta radiation, which is just an electron. Okay? You may also have an anti-electron being emitted. Okay? And then you have gamma ray. Okay? This is the most powerful radiation that can penetrate even a very thin object like steel and so on. Okay? And this comes from the deacceleration of nucleus. Okay, this is a typical diagram. You see any radiation or nuclear book, you have this diagram. Right? It shows you basically the alpha source, being a heavy particle, it cannot penetrate very far. So a piece of paper can be able to stop it. In fact, our dead skin will manage to stop it. Okay? And then you have the beta source, which is electron, slightly penetrable. That means you can penetrate paper and even thin aluminium foil. So the most problematic in terms of radiation radiation protection is a gamma source, because this one can penetrate even a lead of about 3 cm. So all this to protect us from radiation, we have principle of radiation protection. This is a book that I've written with Prof. David Bradley, which is here. Basically, like most hazardous thing, the first thing, you get as far away as possible from it. Yeah? The second thing, you stay as shortest possible time. And the third principle is basically this is more applicable to radiation worker. Okay, you put a shading between the source and yourself. Yeah. So this is the 3 principles. Of course, if you want to know the details and so on, you better buy the book. It's very cheap. Okay. Okay, so now we come to radiation sources. Okay, so basically in this world, you have the naturally occurring radioactive material, or norm. This is of course created when the God created the earth. Norm is already here. Okay, and the second generic term is the norm or the norm. This is basically if you have an industry that process norm, the resulting waste is called the norm. Okay? So you produce the norm in, say, Lynas, in Quebec. Okay? And then you have a man-made radioactive material. This is usually used for medical purposes. Okay? Being produced in nuclear reactor, cyclotron, accelerators, and so on, and also the byproduct or the fallout from nuclear bombs. And of course, you have X-ray, which coming from X-ray machine. The other thing is the cosmic ray. This one nobody can escape. Okay? The higher you stay, the higher you get this cosmic ray. So people living in Cameron Highland will get higher cosmic ray as compared to here in KL. Okay? So you can see from this table that everything contains radioactive material or no. Okay? In fact, 1 kilogram of coffee will have about 1,000 becquerel. Okay? And everybody is radioactive. So an average person of 70 kg, the average weight of a man is have a 7,000 becquerel. Okay? Okay? So this radiation source coming from the sky or from the space. Okay? So you have the dose rate in milligram per year. Okay? At sea levels, of course, the lowest. Okay? If you fly in a jetliner, say from KL to London, okay, it travel very hard, about 30 kilometers, and you will receive. Certainly the pilot will receive most of it because it travel in and out. Okay. In certain European countries, basically the pilot has to wear this dosimeter, okay, radiation dosimeter. In Malaysia, we do not have such law yet. Okay. The picture cobalt 60 radiator, this is the one that we have in physics department. That is man-made, right? We bought it from Canada. So coming back to the naturally occurring radioactive material, you have a series of series radionuclide and non-series radionuclide. The non-series, except for potassium-40, the rest can be ignored. So the series one, the main one is uranium-238. Okay? It decays from the parent, uranium-238, until the last one, which is lead-206, okay? Which is stable. Because of the long half-life of this uranium, about 4.7 billion years, okay? And it's still with Earth, okay? So we can actually predict the age of the Earth is about 4.7 billion years, okay? Thing like plutonium, which is about 10 to the 5 million years, is already gone. Okay? So we can use this radioactive, we call it radioactive dating, to date certain material. Is that yellow with the radiation symbol is radon. Okay, so in the series, all is the daughters, we call it, are solids, okay, except for this radon, which is a gas. Okay, so as a gas, it can travel, seep through, and enter the room, okay, from the soil below. Okay. Same thing for the thorium. It has one daughter, again radon-220. But from radon-220, we are not that worried because the half-life is very short. So by the time you want to seep to the floor, it's already dead. Okay, except for the radon from the uranium. Okay. This is of course how we produce X-ray. So no matter what the X-ray machine look like, okay, like the chest X-ray, the portable X-ray, at the end of the day, the principle is you accelerate electron and hit the target, and that give out X-ray. Okay, so all X-ray machine is based on this principle. Okay. This is of course the X-ray spectrum. This is here is stated that K alpha and K beta. This is referring to the orbit of electron. Okay, K orbit, L orbit, and so on. Okay, so if you increase the X-ray voltage, you get the intensity increases. Okay, if you in practice, if you use a low kV X-ray machine, you have to expose longer. That means the patient will receive a higher dose. So now the Ministry of Health trying to replace all this low kV X-ray machine with about 150 to 200 kV X-ray machine. Okay. This is actually some extract we took from the Radiology Society. It compared the dose received to the how long. This is compared to the natural background. Okay. So if you do one X-ray gigi equivalent to 3 days of natural radiation, and so on. Okay. So this is actually to show you the danger of this cosmic ray. You travel higher, right? Of course, seem to move. Okay. So when we talk about radiation, it has a separate unit of its own, right? For example, 1 becquerel refers to the amount of atom decay per second. Of course, there is still the unique Curie, which is after the person that found the radioactive matter Curie. Okay. And then Becquerel. Okay. And the half-life defined as the amount or the length of time that reduce the amount of radioactivity to half. Okay. And there is a separate unit for radon, which is called WL, working limit. Okay. And then we have a specific amount of specific unit for the amount absorbed by the person. So, for example, Roentgen, this is referred to the amount of gamma absorbed in air to produce 1.61 × 10 to the 15 ions per kilogram of air. Okay? But in the body, in the tissue, we have the unit gray. That is the amount of energy absorbed per unit mass. Okay? So 1 gray of dose is equivalent to 1 joule radiation energy absorbed per kilogram of organ or tissue weight. Okay? So red is still used, even though it's a quite old unit, but now it's been replaced by gray. Okay? And then each type of radiation, you have alpha, beta, and gamma. We have the same energy, what will give you different effect, okay, to the people. So we need to introduce a new unit called equivalent dose, or sievert. So, for example, alpha particle is 20 times more harmful than gamma or S3. Okay? So, alpha particle is enter the body is 20 times more harmful than gamma. If it's outside the body, then it's quite harmless. Okay? So, every part of our body has different sensitivity to radiation. Okay? So there's a factor there. Okay? It's called tissue weighting factors. You can see from the diagram that the most sensitive part is our reproductive system. Okay? Okay. So this is some of the mechanism of interaction of radiation with matter. Okay? The important one is of course the photoelectric effect, Compton scattering, and so on. Yeah. And this is the KH. The reason we mention here, we can actually use this special KH as a way to detect element. Okay? Because the KH value is unique for a given element. Okay? So we can use what we call X-ray fluorescence to detect the element and its concentration. Okay. So of course this is the part that worry most people, right? Basically there are two effects of radiation. Okay? Somatic effect. This is the effect that manifests in ourselves, people who are exposed to radiation. Okay? And the second part that seems to scare a lot of people is of course hereditary or genetic effect. That means the effect can be transferred to your offspring, to your son, daughters, or grandson and granddaughters. Okay? Okay. But you can see, for that to happen, it needs very large exposure. Okay? So you have 100 millisievert, for example. This is very rare, unless there's an accident. Okay? The increase in cancer is only 5 out of every 100%. Okay. 50 millisievert, there is some evidence of cancer being induced in adult. Okay. The working limit for radiation worker is 20 millisievert per year, average over 5 years. Okay. So you can receive, for example, 100 millisievert this year, then you cannot work with radiation for the next 5 years. Right? So that the average should remain 20 millisievert. Okay. And all these people, radiation worker, even in we have about 70 radiation workers. The dose received is monitored, is required by law. Okay. And the typical background radiation throughout the world is about 2 millisievert per year. But surprisingly, we have one place that we have data in Miri, Sarawak. It only the dose is 1 millisievert. So if you don't want to be exposed to high radiation, you should all go and live in Miri. Okay. 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 So this is the detector or the equipment that we use to detect radiation. Basically, there are two types. The active one, that means it will give the reading immediately, okay, in real time. Okay. It has the typical one will be the gas field detector, and you have a semiconductor or solid state detector. Okay. Okay. And the other one, which is the passive, usually it take 1 month before you get the reading. It has to be processed. Okay. Like now in Malaysia, even in we use this OSL, optical simulated luminescence. Okay. And has to be changed every month. Okay. And this is carried out by unit perkhidmatan pelindungan sinaran. Okay. There is also a track detector. We detect the particle in the plastic form. Okay. And you have the TLD. We have the TLD reader there. Okay. We have this TLD reader in our department, physics department. This due to the nuclear incident in Fukushima, they feel that the management actually is lying regarding to the dose received by the people surrounding it. Okay. And then the risk from radiation exposure. Actually, a lot of it is a myth. You know, you become incredible heart or whatever, right? Which is just in the film. It's not true at all. Okay. 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 So here is some of the risks from all the sort of our activity, human activity. Okay. You can see at the top there, exposure to 1,000 to 2,000 millisievert. This is very high from nuclear accident. You get the increase of cancer 1.8 times. Okay. The typical one, which about exposure to 100 to 200 millisievert of radiation, you have about 1.08 times. This is of course smaller than you do not do any exercise. Yeah? You have a bigger risk. Yeah? Okay. Or in fact, if you don't consume enough vegetable, that will also contribute some risk. Okay? So to put in perspective, okay, the increase in baseline incident or mortality rate for unit dose is only 4 times 10 to minus 4, which is say that if 10,000 people receive 1 gram of radiation above the background, only 4 additional deaths will occur of the 2,000 that will occur naturally. Okay, so it's not a lot. Okay. So of course, in Malaysia as well as in other countries, the use of radiation is subjected to law, and this is enforceable. So everybody or every company, every institution that use radiation must be licensed. And the law say that you are personally responsible if there is any accident, etc. So in our case here, but in the person is of course the registrar. So if he can prove that, of course they will come and get me first, being the RPO. But if I can prove that it's not my doing, it's the university didn't give me the budget, etc., then the person, the registrar, has to go to jail. Right? No. Okay, so. Okay, but here to show that is actually in a safe hand. Right? I'm the radiation protection officer, which is, I would say, highly qualified. I'm a chartered radiation protection professional. In fact, I think in Malaysia, maybe I'm the only one who hold this. Okay. This is Royal Charter, UK. Okay, so now it come to part of my research. We do some measurement. In Malaysia, actually, there are two places that produce radioactive waste. The first one is oil and gas industry. Not many people realize that there is a radioactive waste being produced by this oil and gas industry. Okay. The reason is that when you want to pump out the oil or the gas underground, you have to force what they call produced water. And this produced water will come with the oil and gas plus the radioactive material, usually the radium. Okay. Radium-226 and radium-228 from daughters of uranium and thorium. Okay. And with the chain of chemistry, the pressure, temperature, and so on, this salt will be precipitate. Okay. So this is the forced water. You inject the water, and the gas and oil will come out. Okay, and the produced water will have the radioactive material. Okay. So the typical terminal one. Okay. So the product, salt product, will be deposited in scale and slush. Okay. So the scale contain radium sulfate, and this scale, the vessel and the pipe, actually become quite radioactive. Okay. So for example, if the worker need to clean the vessel, they must have a RPO first measure what is the activity. Okay. And so this is actually some of the scale and slush being put into the drum, yeah, from the oil and gas industry. Okay. And this one, if the activity above than 300 becquerel per kilogram or per liter, it is classified as radioactive. So it cannot be just chucked anywhere, right? So it must be confined in certain area. Yeah. So this is typical result of oil and gas industry. Yeah. you have onshore and offshore. Okay? Microsievert per hour. Okay? Again, this is the measurement of radium and actinium in these facilities. Okay? Okay? And then we come to the most sensitive area, which is mineral processing plant. Okay? Basically, you have the input of rutile, ilmenite, etc. that contain a rare earth element. So this rare earth element is useful for display mechanism in, say, handphone, TV, etc. Okay. At the moment, China is the only country that produces a lot of it. Okay? So for some reason, they want to do the same thing in Malaysia, right? By bringing the rutile and ilmenite from Australia and process in Gabon. But what the public don't know is that this Lynas is not the first company or plant that process the material. They are already here, right? Before that. But the reason people are worried at that time and cash on this Lynas thing is because at the same time there is a Fukushima nuclear accident. So everybody is sort of everywhere scared of this radiation. So at the same time they want to build this Lynas. So there is an uproar, right? There is a demonstration, there is a group of people, okay, doing demonstration in Kuantan, even up to in Australia. But at the end of the day, the company is still running. So they are in fact being given a license already. Okay. So see, this is some of the activity that we measured in the product of this processing, mineral processing plant. Okay. This one is certainly not in Lynas. So it's somewhere else. This one is also not in Lynas. Okay. We actually all this report, all this thing, we actually do a measurement direct up to about 20 kilometers from the factory or from the plant. Okay. So all this report, as you see, I will certify it. Okay. So without my signature, fortunately the report is invalid. Okay. And we also, I also certified the X-ray machine. Yeah. So most of the hospital and clinic, okay, they need a certificate once a year, right, in order to operate the machine. Okay, so we measure all the leakage, performance, KV, timer, and so on. I can assure you about 95% actually follow the regulation. Only 5% usually fail. Okay, most of it is pass. 95% pass. Okay. It's not in order, but this is actually show you the contaminated pipe from the oil industry. And before being reused, we have to do decon or decontamination, okay, on the pipe. Okay. Okay. So this is what we worry, or most people worry, at least in European and American, not yet here. It's a radon gas, okay? Because uranium and thorium is available in the soil, in the foundation, and granite, and so on. Being a gas, it will seep through to enter the house, okay? In fact, in America, the second cause of lung cancer after cigarette smoking, okay, is radon gas, okay? So we have done some measurement. In fact, we have done some measurement around housing area in Kelang Valley. But here we show you the measurement that we done in physics room. Right? So here you can see the moral of the measurement is that you can stay longer in the toilet. Okay. This, of course, as I said, this radioactive is ubiquitous, it's everywhere. So you can see that cement, sand brick, the material that we build houses contain this radioactive. Okay. This is radon mitigation, how to remove radon. Actually, our ancestor, the Malay house, they already consider this radon thing, right? So they build house on stick, okay, tiang, right? So when the radon come to the surface, it will be blown away by the wind, gone with the wind, so to speak. Okay. Of course, the other reason is to beat the bungee or something. So the best thing is to build the house traditionally. Okay. We also measure this of academic interest because not much you can do. For example, radioactivity in pineapple. Okay. You can see here that the lowest pineapple is coming from Gunung Pulai. Is it in Johor? Okay. Okay. But of course you cannot avoid. You don't ask the supplier. This is from where? You just eat. So this is a matter of interest only. Okay. And this is from tapioca. Right? And the one in the chili actually is not, we don't measure the radioactive, but we use the technique of TL to tell whether you dry chili or dry onion, etc. Is it being irradiated before they send it to Malaysia? Okay. We certainly can confirm you the dried chili, for example from India, is being irradiated. Okay. To make it last longer. To increase the shelf life. Okay. But not to worry, it won't harm you anyway. It will not make the spice radioactive at all. Okay? It will just kill the organism. Whatever. Okay. This is actually radioactive present in infant milk. Okay. Apparently, one of the country or region where it's quite high in radioactive is coming from Singapore. Okay, but of course Singapore itself does not produce milk, so it must be imported from some other country. Okay, that are exposed to maybe Japan, etc. I don't know. Okay, okay. And this one is in our rice. Okay. Again, this one we cannot avoid. Okay? So we eat mostly from anywhere, we don't ask. Okay? But there is still some radioactive present. Okay? Okay. Even in our fish, okay? Or we call seafood. Okay? There are radioactive present. Okay. And then one of the sample of the sediment, we found also cesium-137. This is not a norm. This is man-made. Okay. We feel that this cesium-137 is the remnant of nuclear or atomic bomb test in the 1950s. Because before, in 1950, they test the atomic bomb in air. Okay, so the fallout will travel throughout the world. Okay. Okay. In some soft drink. Okay. You see there, the lowest is pineapple juice, which is our own. So all the imported juice have high radioactive. Okay. And this is norm in drinking water. So of course mineral water has the highest, which is of course because it contains mineral, including radioactive. Okay. But it's just a story. Okay. This is in corn. Again, you can see the corn from Sungai Besar has the lowest. But it's difficult to control. You jumpa je corn, you just buy and eat it. Okay. In ginger, okay. Shellfish we have collected from this area. Okay. This one, the measurement that we have done around Linus, only around the perimeter, because we are not allowed to enter inside the perimeter. But this one will give us a very good baseline value. If the Linus discharge anything, we immediately can detect, because we already have the baseline value. Okay, so it's very useful. Okay. This is the courtesy of Allah. Ini good one. Okay. I better scan this quickly. So this is because one of my major work is thermoluminescence. This is simplified way to explain the TL process. So you have the insulator where valence band is full. Okay, it's paired, electron and hole. Okay, but when it receives radiation, the electron will be raised to conduction band. Okay, next one. And then while wandering in the conduction band, the electron will be trapped by the electron trap. Okay. Of course, all the time the electron trap, the electron, or in this case the girl, will try to escape. So you have the frequency of escape S. Okay, but it cannot escape unless energy is supplied, either in the form of heating or in form of light photon, which is referred as OSL, or photoluminescent, or otherwise it's called thermoluminescent. This is the shape of the glow curve, the light output. Okay. We can also use thermoluminescence as a form of dating to tell whether you have a artifact, whether it's a copy or a true one. Okay. This one I think we have done in some pottery in Besuk. Okay. But again, this is a quite assumption that we use, so the error is quite large. Okay. And certainly the important thing, you can tell whether the, as I say, artifact is a copy, okay, or in a really original one. Okay. Okay. The other one that I would like to stress, that I start with the study trying to produce a storage for highly active radioactive waste. Okay. Because all this nuclear power, which I heard we're going to go nuclear in 10 years' time, they produce this waste. Okay. So I'm trying to find a metric or material that can contain the waste that can last for, say, 1 million years. Okay. This is what they do at the moment. They just bury in the cement encased thing, and so on. Okay. So this is my objective, to produce the container or the metric that can last, that can contain the radioactive until doomsday. And the material is zircon or zirconium silicate. Okay. This is some of the study that I've done throughout the years. Okay. You can see here the damage actually decrease or become zero at high temperature. So you must bear in mind this highly radioactive waste is also very hot. So this material will actually auto any the damage. Okay. Unfortunately, I've run out of money because it needs a lot of money to do this sort of research, and now I run out of time as well. Okay. We also developed this optical fiber. We start with using the commercial one, but with the help of our collaborators, MMU, Fakulti of Engineering, we produce our own fiber. Okay. So some of the response on this fiber. The reason that we are choosing the fiber is that because very fine, that we are hoping we can do the dose measurement in situ where the cancer organ is. Okay. At the moment, the dose is just by calculation, by Monte Carlo, because there is no such thing, there is no small dosimeter that can go in situ. Okay. But again, this project is quite a long way to go. Okay. So go on. Okay, go on. Or they go back to photo transfer TL. Yeah. Satu. This photo transfer thermoluminescence is a new thing. Okay, because usually TL material like lithium fluoride, etc. Once you glow it, it's finished. I mean, the signal is gone, so the record will be gone. But now we have developed this photo transfer. We are hoping that the deeper track, the electron is still there, so we use a photon to transfer it to lower track, so that we can reuse for second reading and so on. Okay. Okay. At one time, we also used the radioactive technetium 99M. This is used in hospital, but because the half-life is only about 6 hours, if they don't use, you buy it very expensive by air, etc. By air cargo. If you don't use within that time frame, you will be gone. So the waste we try to, once they have used it, the leftover we try to use it for something else. Okay, in this case, X-ray fluorescence to determine lead in bone. Okay, so we don't need to buy the expensive radioactive; we just get it from the hospital. Okay, this is to give actually. To tell the incentive, especially to young lecturer. Right? Actually, being a lecturer, we go places. Okay. So this is some of the conference that I've been to. Okay. Here, can you hold on? If you realize that, go back. There's one familiar person, right? The picture. Forward again. Lagi. This one is the biggest floating mosque in Casablanca. Okay, go. Okay. Okay. This is in Bosnia, just before the war. In fact, after we left the hotel where the conference was done, it's been bombed. Okay. This is the picture. You see, person on my right is familiar. Is our former dean, Datuk Sufian, yang duduk makan nasi. Okay, this is in Lahore, Pakistan. This is my graduation day in Suffolk University. Okay, good. And this is another conference visit, but it's local. Kota Kinabalu. Okay, so acknowledgement of all the staff in physics as well as postgraduate students. Okay. Okay. Of course, special thanks to Dr. Siti Farus who organized everything, head of physics, the dean, and the staff of UPPS. So this is some of the postgraduate students. And this is my family. Okay. Go back. Kejap. Okay. Go back to bola. I hope you recognize me, right? This is of course why in Korea. Okay. This is the first edition of Jabatan Berdaftar magazine. Okay. This is my picture during the kursus Prabesara. Okay, this is my current family. Go on. This is my kampung, right? Kampung Pulau Kerengga. It's the only kampung in the world where to go to the beach, you have to cross the river. You can see the river that parallel to the beach. Okay. Okay, the last picture. This may not be clear, but it's a picture of a bunch of grapes. Okay. Why I put this one as the last picture is to tell you that being a professor of physics, we just don't think about physics all the time. So one of my hobby at home is I like to do gardening. So this grape is actually I planted at the back of my garden. Okay. So with that, I thank you for listening to my inaugural lecture. Thanks.
Thank you, Prof. Yusoff Mohd Amin. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to call upon Professor Zanaria to summarize and conclude today's lecture, which has been delivered by Professor Yusoff a moment ago.
Okay, thank you, Prof. Yusoff, for such a very informative and interesting lecture. It makes me feel homesick looking at Pulau Kerengga and Prof. Muhammad as well. Okay, Prof. Dr. Yusoff Mohd Amin has brought us through what is meant by radiation. We remember my days doing physics. And from there on, he moved to remind us all the sources of radiation and so on, the good and bads of radiation, and then followed by his contribution in research in the field of radiation. And he is very much involved in the research in radiation. To name a few, as we all saw just now, his study involved the study of the radiation damage in Zikron, as he mentioned earlier, in order to use Zikron as a container for a long-term storage for highly active radioactive waste. And he is also involved in the fabrications of luminescence material to act as a radiation detector. And I'm not going to mention all. And his research in the radiation in environment also give us some information on the level of radiation in food. Those of you who love hot foods, be careful. Dried chili has high level of radiation. And seafood as well. And imported food, as we saw in the table just now, most of the imported juice has quite high, not quite high, higher content of radiation compared to our local juice. So thus we can conclude that buy Malaysian product, don't buy overseas products. And I think I'm not going to take most of the time. Let us once again put our hands together to thank Prof. Yusoff for such very interesting lecture. Thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Prof. Zanaria, for chairing this lecture. Before we end today's inaugural lecture, it is my pleasure again to invite Professor Zanaria to give a small gesture of appreciation from the Radiation Physics Unit to the Professor Yusoff. Thank you, Prof. Zanaria. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the management of the Faculty of Science, Department of Physics, Organizing Committee, International Corporate Relations Office, students and staffs of University of Malaya, as well as all distinguished guests here who have made time to be part in today's inaugural lecture. With this, we have reached the end of the inaugural lecture. On behalf of University of Malaya, I would like to express our gratitude and also apologize if there had been any shortcomings from our side in organizing this lecture. We would like to invite all distinguished guests to have some light refreshment, which will be served just outside this auditorium. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, our deepest gratitude for your presence and have a pleasant afternoon. Thank you.